Ombud Expo, which is the first of its kind in the world. And we are happy it's taking place at this wonderful city, Abuja. And again, we believe in the Ombudsman institution and its potentials. We all know that human rights they are not just mere aspirations. In other words, it's not a pie in the sky. Human rights are not discretionary. Rather, they are fundamental and bear on our day-to-day lives. Every individual is affected by human rights. Since we consider it to be inalienable rights, those things that come with us for being human beings. So, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you're tall, whether you're short, as long as you're a human being, you have some basic rights that are attached to you. I think that's a common understanding globally. Again, human rights helps us to hold governments accountable. And we know that increasingly, especially in the Commonwealth, the Ombudsman institution has gained a lot of gravitas in terms of promotion and protection of human rights. There has been this division of classical ombudsman and hybrid ombudsman. Hybrid in the sense of having extensive mandates in human rights. But even with the classical, you find that day-to-day work impacts on human rights. When a government department is asked to perform a specific duty in the interest of compliance, whether it's health care, whether it's prisons, whether it's education, all those are socio-economic rights that the ombudsman is sitting on and making determinations. So, whether classical or hybrid, human rights comes to the core of the functions of the ombudsman. And that is why we are having this session today, to see how both the classical and the hybrid, from very distinguished personalities in our midst, how in their own experience, issues of human rights have been addressed. So I'll start by welcoming our wonderful speakers this morning who are going to speak. But it's going to be very interactive in the sense that, like I said earlier, we're going to do things differently in the sense that we need active participation from the floor. And part of the ground rules is that there are no wrong answers and there are no wrong questions. We want to start enjoying our human rights right here in this room. And we want to start with the freedom of expression. Whatever thing you think, the human potential and the human imagination is wonderful. Whatever thing you think, whatever thing you have thought about when it comes to the issues of ombudsman, human rights, please encourage you, Lord, to express it. We might benefit from you, and you might benefit from others. So we have to have an open and frank conversation. Like I said, no wrong questions, no wrong answers in this room. Is that a good understanding? Yeah. We all subscribe to that? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to sign off on it. Okay, so that will be our starting point this morning. So I will introduce our speakers. Let me start with Honorable Joseph Whittal. Joseph Whittal is a lawyer by profession, having been called to the Ghana Bar in 1990. And he is the chairperson commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, in Ghana. Well, as we can imagine, SHRAJ is an independent institution, what they call an independent constitutional body, established under the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. He was appointed to head the commission on the 20th December 2016. Before then, he was the deputy commissioner. And I believe before then, he was a director, program manager, program officer. In fact, he was there when that institution was established. So you can see a lot of institutional memory that goes with him. So he is in a better position to share with us his experiences so far. And he's connected to the international system as well. Since he is part of the NANRI, Network of African National Human Rights Institutions, and NANRI, which is connected to the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions. SHRAJ is and has observer status with the UN Human Rights Council as well. So you see a man who is both local and international. So we are glad to have him here. Secondly, we have another speaker, Advocate John Walters. John Walters was appointed the Ombudsman of Namibia effective 1st July 2004. And he's the third to hold that position in Namibia since independence. He brings more than 3 decades of experience in various capacities in the justice system behind him. Before his appointment, Advocate Walters was serving as an advisor to the prosecution team involved in Caprivi high treason case in the High Court at Grootfontein. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah? Grootfontein. Okay. Grootfontein. Before that, he had been serving as acting prosecutor general from December 2002 to the end of 2003. Advocate Walters began his legal career as a public prosecutor stationed at Kitmanship. In 1985, he changed course in his career, taking up a post as a magistrate stationed in Windhoek. Windhoek is the capital of Namibia. Shortly after independence, he joined the office of Prosecutor General, where he was promoted to Deputy Prosecutor General 2 years later. Advocate Walters has been involved in various high-profile cases, including the inquest into the 1989 assassination of SWAPO member Antin Libosi and the high treason trial of a group of men who were accused of hatching a right-wing plot to overthrow the newly independent Namibian government. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Laws for degrees from the University of Western Cape in South Africa in 1980. So you can see a man with wealth of experience. Our third speaker is Honorable Akal Badsha Attack. Is it clear?
Yes,
Did I get it? Okay. Okay, somewhere there. Okay. Honorable Katak has over 35 years in provincial services and has held additional important field postings, including as additional commissioner, deputy commissioner, and magistrate in various districts of Kaipa, Patunka. He was also previously posted as additional secretary in law at the Parliamentary Affairs and Human Rights Departments and Deputy Secretary Home Department in the Health Department. He previously worked as project director, computerization of land records. So he has very strong IT skills. Honorable Akal has extensive experience in policy reform structures and procedures. Mr. Badsha retired from Provincial Civil Service on 16 March 2018. Due to his vast experience as a law graduate, tendering legal opinion to the provincial government, he was the most suitable officer for the August Office of Provincial Ombudsman in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. You're welcome. Now we have another distinguished personality here, Hubert McKinsey from Jamaica. You know, the Jamaica made a very strong presence since yesterday, is it not?
Yeah.
We all noticed, we all felt it.
Yeah.
Okay, in fact, at some points I thought we were going to gyrate, you know. Yes, but McKinsey is the deputy. Yesterday we saw the public protector, but McKinsey is the public defender yesterday, but McKinsey is the deputy public defender of Jamaica. That is his current post. He's a trained lawyer, having earned his LLB from the University of West Indies, Kevin campus in Barbados. He received his certificate of legal education from Norman Manley Law School in Kingston, Jamaica. Mr. McKinsey is called to the Jamaican Bar and the Bar of the British Virgin Islands. He is a retired Army officer.
Captain.
In the rank of captain. So we can call you retired Captain Herbert McKinsey. Having graduated from Royal Military Sandhurst in the UK. You are very much welcome, Herbert McKinsey. In our midst is Tony Ojukwu. Mr. Ojukwu, are you here? Mr. Ojukwu? Okay, he's not here yet. Maybe he was on his way. He is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian National Human Rights Commission. So when he comes, we should be able to do a proper introduction. So without much ado, and if our technical experts are ready for us, we will take the first presentation. And as you can see from the program, I want us to take the presentations as they come. In other words, so that we don't lose out on some important trends. We'll finish the first presentation, then we'll open up for dialogue. And then after that, we'll move to the second presentation. Do you think it's a good way to go about this? Because I want us to be as active as possible. Yes. So, are we ready for the first presentation? And my partner here is not even here. Let me see. Where is she gone?
I can start with.
Okay, that's fine. So while they sort out the technical details, I think Honorable Waiter will want to just start. Okay, so you have the floor. If you want to sit down, if you want to start.
Since we all have our rights, I don't know how it will look like, but how do you prefer me? You want me to stand or sit?
No, we're entitled to have a say. Do we want to sit down or to stand?
Whatever you want.
So they're giving you the power to make a decision? Yes.
Right, so I'll stand for some time. If I decide to sit, then I'll exercise that right. Thank you, Stephen, and let me first indicate that the topic that I'm speaking on is the crucial role of the Ombudsman in the promotion and protection of human rights. Now, that presupposes that the answer has been given. It means the role is crucial. It is not for us to now answer it again. It means the role is crucial. So my duty is to now tease out what are the ways in which the Ombudsman can play that crucial role. And may I start first with a dilation on the theme, because the theme is meant to guide the discussion. The theme is extending the Ombud frontiers. Governance, better governance, and what else? We all get together.
Yeah. Enhanced performance.
Enhanced performance. And so, I want to maybe put some teasers out. Do we think the Ombud's frontiers ought to be extended? And if we are to extend them, do we think that the human rights promotion and protection is a crucial area for the extension? I will answer the question by saying yes, I think we need to begin to consider that. It's also about time for us to begin to check on ourselves in terms of our service delivery. How is our service delivery as ombudsmen? Are we only going to be consigned to maladministration, where we're using the Grossman catalog and all those? Since we are ombudsmen, I don't want to preach to the converted, but is that sufficient? So that's the direction I'm on. I think the African continent, the international world, among others, are all moving forward, improving for the better, changing the governance structure. And it's about time our institutions should follow suit. It is not about the ombudsman always depending on the old remnants. So that is the direction. Now, for those of us who may not know, apart from, I'm sure John Walter certainly will be aware of the OR Tambo minimum standards. These were standards that the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association, meeting in South Africa sometime back in 2012, put down as the minimum standards for an effective ombudsman. So we will look at it quickly. How far have we gone? We recognize as far back as 2012 that there is a need to improve on the effectiveness of service delivery and the institution of the ombudsman in Africa. So we will look at the OR Tambo minimum standards. And by the way, they are not very different from the Paris principles. And these principles are those that determine whether the over 100 and so national human rights institutions in the world are effective or not. So those criteria will be a guiding post. And we cannot can make a presentation on human rights without necessarily talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. These are the overarching international blueprints for development, and they are anchored on human rights. They're anchored on the instruments of human rights. They are anchored on, in fact, it means that the principles on human rights, principles of accountability, principles of participation, among others, are all embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the continental level, we also have the Agenda 2063. And some studies that have been made have mapped the Agenda 2063 with the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of their human rights dimension. And it has been seen to be very effective. That if you implement or participate in the implementation and monitoring of these two overarching goals, you would also at the same time, you would be implementing human rights principles and standards. So we'll look at that quickly. Then I'll bring the Ghanaian experience. How has the Ombudsman of Ghana, which is a hybrid, performed its promotion and protection role in human rights? Right, so for me, when you talk about extending the frontiers, I think ombudsmen or fellow ombudsmen, we need to look at something. Should we now begin to look at our service delivery? Is it only about sitting down and investigating cases from a certain standpoint? Can we do more in our service delivery? That is a classical ombudsman type. For the hybrid, we can assume that that is being done. So, is it possible for us, as classical ombudsmen, so to speak, to begin to look at our service delivery from the standpoint of this international expo that has exposed us to all manner of different types of ombudsmen? We've had the opportunity to look at different types of literature and other. Then the creative interpretation or an expansive interpretation of our remit. Maladministration is our remit. That is mostly the ombudsman, the classical type. Can we be creative in the way we understand maladministration? If maladministration is about bad governance, is bad governance translatable to holding people accountable to breaches of human rights and fundamental freedoms? Is it overstretching the mark? These are standards that have been signed on to by countries. Your own countries have ratified them. In fact, some have domesticated them. And the ombudsman is going to use the law in determining cases. Should we not take advantage of variety standards that our countries are held accountable to? So when we talk about accountability, should we say we are not the Human Rights Commission? Should we begin to interpret our mandate more creatively, and more expansively? So, do we have a role under Agenda 2063 or Agenda 2030? Do we have a role? I think we do. We do very much. Hybrids do. So also the traditional ombudsman. I think we do, and I'll justify it. Now, the old Atambo minimum standards, for those who don't know, are those African ombudsmen met somewhere in South Africa and said, look, you know what? We have been bumping along and other institutions or accountability mechanisms are taking us. They seem to be occupying the space. What can we do to make ourselves stronger institutions, more resilient, more respected, and with all the problems that affect the ombudsman, can we identify them? And so we came up with, and I was really part of it, I was even part of the drafting committee. We came up with how can we make the traditional classical ombudsman have better independence and autonomy. That is very crucial. Again, we also said there's a need to have the ombudsman established preferably under a constitution. Thirdly, we said appointment and security of tenure of our members. We need to look at that. Because if you don't have a strong institution, you cannot be taken seriously when it comes to holding power accountable. That is very crucial. Then, and more instructively, we said we should have a broad interpretation of maladministration. So it's not we say it, but it's the whole IOMA that took that decision. Then on resources, accessibility, impartiality, and accountability, we said, using the platform of the African Union Commission, or the African Union, where our states go to have meetings, these minimum standards must be agreed by our states to be the basis for establishing or strengthening the ombudsman in each country. Those that already have some of these strengthened can be looking at the ones that they are not strong at. Then we have an MOU with the African Union Commission. How are we going to operationalize that? Which is very critical, because the African Union Commission has gone further to have a human rights strategy. So from my point of view, as somebody, as a member of the steering committee of the network of African National Human Rights Institutions, who also have an MOU with the African Union Commission, I can see our MOU with the African Union Commission producing great results. In fact, there are regional dialogues. Every year there is a policy dialogue between the network of African National Human Rights Institutions and that of the AU. And we take the theme for the year, like the theme that has been set by the heads of state and government for the year is returnees, refugees, and internally displaced persons. So we went all along discussing that policy, which again we reflected in the discussions at the Africa Commission. And on Sunday we are convening in Egypt, and it's all on the same theme. Now, when you take a team along with your country, and the theme is certainly on human rights, these themes are on human rights, it means you have a buy-in into what the state is doing. It makes you more relevant in terms of what you have chosen to do for the year, so that it becomes a useful thing. My question is, why is the MOU of the African Union Commission with AOMA not operationalized? It's very important. If we operationalize it, it's going to be of help to us at the level of the promotion and protection of human rights on the African continent. Briefly, for the Paris Principles, for those of us who know the Paris Principles, I wouldn't want to bore you. But those who don't, these are the UN standard minimum requirements for an effective national human rights institution. And so they were passed somewhere in 1993. And the key parts are on the competence and responsibilities. If you have to have an effective national human rights institution, you need to have a broad mandate. You need to be able to take under your consideration the complaints without recourse to somebody determining it. For instance, in the UK, there's a filter where if your complaint doesn't pass through the parliament, the parliamentary and health service ombudsman may have a difficulty in taking it on. We don't have that here. And so the principles are expected to make you more effective, more accessible for people to reach you as the person who can defend their rights. So you can do further reading on the Paris Principle, but they are the criteria for effectiveness for determining accreditation and re-accreditation of all national human rights institutions. When we come to the latter part, I'll handle that. Then the composition and guarantees of independence. Your country will not have an accredited national human rights institution if the composition of the membership is not broad enough, it's not inclusive enough, it's not made up of either gender, labor, shouldn't be stilted to one professional grouping, among others. And of course, the guarantees of independence is very, very crucial. Guarantees, are you on your own? Are you your own man or woman? Or are you somebody who is hiding under a prime minister's office or a president's office? Those are very crucial before you can be given a status under the Paris Principles. And because they are UN and the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights, Human Rights Unit participates or is actively involved in the accreditation, you can be sure that the standard is very high. Now, your methods of operation, how broad are your methods? Do you have, are you able to do mediation? Are you able to have binding decisions? Are you able to enforce in court? Are you able to, the operations should be broad enough, among others. Then, there are some, it's not every national human rights institution that has the power to receive complaints and to investigate. Some among us here, I don't know, Danish human rights institution, they don't receive complaints. So those who receive complaints are those that have what we call the additional principles concerning commissions with quasi-jurisdictional competence. That is very important. Most ombudsmen pass this test because we all do cases. So that shouldn't be a problem. Now, talking about the role for the ombudsman institutions under the SDGs and Agenda 2063. The question is, these two are going to guide the development of the world for some time to come. And they are actually anchored under the UN Charter, the ICCPR, the International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights, and the right to development, among others. Can the Ombudsman afford not to actively participate in the development and governance process without working through these? And how do we do that? That is very crucial. It's about relevance. Are you getting a buy-in into the country's strategy? Because every country is expected to mainstream Agenda 2030 and 2063 into its development planning. What role do you have to play? The role, the human rights role, which is critical, is how do we set indicators, human rights-based indicators. For governments have got technical people who are into development economics and all that. But they are not human rights people. So when you're considering indicators in the development plan, we are useful because you will be able to make them human rights based. You'll be able to contribute to shaping, sharpening, and making the human rights, the indicators tilted towards the implementation or the achievement of a right or the other. So that becomes very important. Now, we don't have data. Data is a big problem. When it comes to the type of complaints that we receive, if we disaggregate our complaints very well, you'll be able to assist the implementation process by providing the relevant data on how many women have brought complaints on this, how many children have brought complaints, this, and so we have a beehive of data that we can make available. Then, the human rights-based approach. I talked about participation, accountability, and others. Is how do we hold our governments accountable? If we say we are an accountability mechanism, how do you hold government accountable when you are not involved in monitoring the implementation of the development plan of your country and how resources are distributed to the poor, to the vulnerable, to areas where there is no, let me say, every country there are some places where development is not much. So let's look at that. Now, SDG 16, very, very crucial. Building peace, justice, and strong institutions. All the work of an ombudsman is about ensuring that we resolve disputes to ensure peace. In the course of it, we're making access to justice available to the ordinary person, because most of us don't have. You don't pay to use our service. And then, strong institutions. Are our institutions strong? If you are not strong, how are you able to hold the strong accountable? So it means that we have a responsibility, the governments have a responsibility, and we have a duty to use SDG 16, which incidentally has got an indicator on, that's indicator 16.1a, which allows countries to have an independent, established or strengthened national human rights institution, which includes ombudsman, compliant with the Paris principles. And so when governments have to now go to the high-level political forum to give account of how they are performing under the SDGs, they will be asked, have you met that indicator? And so you have the opportunity to have an indicator to push governments to ensure that the ombudsman is strong based on the criteria that I gave earlier. Now, quickly, for Ghana, we have been there. I mean, we've been the classical ombudsman since '69. We exited that model in '92. And for the reasons that I've given, and what I intend to tell you, is to let you now see how, when we took up the role of the ombudsman, of the human rights promotion and protection, in addition to anti-corruption, how that has made the institution more relevant, more pro-people, more assisting in building a culture of human rights within Ghana. How do we do that? Promotion. We promote human rights through the mass media, through symposia on topical issues, through lectures, through community debates, through human rights clubs, establishment of clubs in schools, among others. If you don't blanket the country with, where Steve is looking at your watch, am I running out of time?
You have few minutes, yeah.
Very few, yeah. So we need to do that, to build a culture of human rights. And I think the ombudsman has a great role to play in that regard. We do the promotion by also linking up with NGOs and others who have some level of interest in human rights. Among others, we have targeted harmful traditional practices in Ghana, particularly against the girl child and women. We talked about SDG 5 in the room yesterday. We are actually very much involved in the monitoring and implementation of SDG 5 through certain, but we pick the areas of interest: harmful traditional practices, female genital mutilation, and all those things that this patriarchal system is doing against women and girls. Now, our protection mandate is we investigate human rights. And as I told you, we have other mandates, so corruption, the administrative justice, among others, the code of conduct, among others. That is a protective mandate. Protective and accountable at the same time. Because when you take on cases about the violations of rights against people, you are not only being technical in terms of whether you are finding out whether there has been maladministration. No. The scales have been turned. You are finding out whether the state, through its public officials, have violated a right which is cognizable under law, which has been ratified by the state, and which is binding on the state. So it gives it a stronger and more effective resonance. Then we monitor places of detention, prisons, and we are looking at the vulnerable areas where human rights can be abused. So prisons, police cells, correctional centers, prayer camps, among others. And I'll be ending soon. We monitor government social interventions. Most governments have been patting themselves on the back. You know, already economic and social rights are not so justiciable in many countries. So governments have a tendency to say, we are doing XYZ for XYZ. We need to know, we need an accountability institution that can also go on its own. And it's a state institution, not an NGO, that will go on its own, monitor the interventions, submit an independent report to the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana and to international fora like the UPR and the Human Rights Council, the treaty bodies, among others. So that's about the protective mandate. We are presently involved very much in the structures that government has set up to implement and to mainstream SDGs and Agenda 2063 within the country. We are part of the technical group. In fact, we are working closely with the statistical services in providing data from our side of operations. And we are presently preparing tools to monitor specifically some aspects of SDGs in our country. We are having in mind the right to basic education, which government has offered and is running along with, but we need an independent perspective as to whether it is actually being done, and being done the way government says it is doing it. I've told about the accreditation. We've since we got accredited as A-status, we've never gone backwards. We've been there. That means we've been consistent in the way we have kept pace. Every 5 years, go back for re-accreditation, and they will go through with you thoroughly, just to be sure you are right. So the human rights monitoring mechanisms of even we ourselves is also something that will assist the institution not to slide back after gaining some glory. For the key things for the Paris Principles will be, we are settled established under the Constitution, we are entrenched, you can't remove this commission until there's a referendum in Ghana. The appointment of commissioners, solid, tenure is very long. I'm of the status of a Court of Appeal judge, and I'll be saying terms and conditions of a Court of Appeal judge, and I will retire at age 70, unless I do something wrong. Of course, that too is there. Stated misbehavior, infirmity of mind, among others. But a procedure will be taken to ensure that you are removed through that procedure, and you have a hearing. So it's important to come under the Paris Principles if we want to have strong institutions, ombudsman institutions. Autonomy is guaranteed because we can employ on our own. Government doesn't employ our staff for us. We employ them. We place them. We open our own offices. We do our own budgeting. We spend on our own. We don't require the fiat of the government to travel. I mean, it's about autonomy, being on your own. That's how you can better handle accountability. Our broad mandate is, I don't need to go into it, it's already broad. It's even overly broad. But more cases are coming. That tells you that I have reached where I should reach. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause again. Thank you very much for this very depth, deep, and thought-provoking presentation itself. We see that the SHRAJ, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice in Ghana, is established under the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. And because it's embedded in the Constitution, no matter the type of government Ghana will have today or tomorrow, they cannot wake up one day and say they don't like this. Well, they may not like it, but they can do nothing because it's a constitutional body. I think that's a key takeaway. And the issue of the Paris Principles, the principles that kind of ensure quality control of institutions. And when it's connected to the SDG 16 and strong institutions, we see that Ombudsman institution comes under SDG 16 and the AU Agenda 2063 itself. So it means that the Ombuds institution is part of the human rights accountability mechanism, and to that extent, it has to contribute to the implementation of SDG itself. I think it's a good understanding, both for classical and hybrid ombudsman aspects, and the issue of the human rights indicators that has to inform development plans. Because, like the Chinese would say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. It means if you don't make that step, you won't start the journey. So if you don't embed human rights in the development plan, there's no way you can hold governments accountable later in itself. I think that's a very powerful one. Thank you, Mr. Withel. Yes. So we come back to our human rights forum now. Maybe we need to finish the presentations and then we'll start the dialogue. Okay, so I invite Advocate John Waters to make his presentation. So let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring a loud enough voice. I don't need that thing because I speak with my hands. A person doing sign language. I'm afraid I will throw the microphone away and I start speaking with my hands, as I call it. But facilitator, allow me to make some brief comments, and I hope you will not penalize me with time subtracted from my time allocated to me. Let me firstly commend the previous speakers on that presentation, especially our female speakers. Through their individual and collective wisdom, they erected for us a lamppost, which are surely worthy to be followed. I've been asked to speak on topics different from what you see on the program. There was a misunderstanding. So yesterday I have to dig deep into my brain, not so deep, to compile some speaking notes. And if my words fall from my tongue, just know that I'm not that well prepared. But if a man of 15 and a half years of experience, you will say, as ombudsman, you don't need to make speaking notes. I will share with you, firstly, of the Namibian experience. The Namibian ombudsman enjoys constitutional supremacy. I like the word constitutional supremacy to emphasize that we are not creatures of subordinate legislation, but we are a creature of the highest supreme law of the country. It is a multi-function office with a very unique and broad mandate. I will not speak of a hybrid model. Listen to or look at the title. Hybrid model of human rights institution. If I speak about a hybrid, I will disown my institution, which is an ombudsman. Because I'm no hybrid of a human rights institution. I'm not. I'm a human rights, I am an ombudsman with multiple functions. And I will speak about the functions. And I will disown ombudsman by not recognizing them as human rights institutions. I prefer to speak of an ombudsman with multiple functions. Only an ombudsman who has a specific human rights mandate can be called a human rights institution of its country. My institution, like our country, will celebrate next year our 30th anniversary of the country's independence, so also the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the Ombudsman. I've been, as I said, 15 years the Ombudsman of Namibia, and I am one of the very few Ombudsman, I believe David, Joseph and my colleague from Zambia, Caroline, we are appointed for life. They cannot remove us. We are slaves. You cannot fire a slave, isn't it? Now, what are the duties of the Ombudsman of Namibia? Firstly, to promote and protect human rights. Secondly, to ensure effective public administration, fair and effective public administration, and another unique mandate. Protect the environment and natural resources of Namibia. And then another one, which is just a remnant of the Anti-Corruption Commission, anti-corruption mandate, which the Ombudsman of Namibia was duty bound until 2004, when an independent Anti-Corruption Commission was established. But there remains something, and that is to investigate instances of alleged misappropriation of public monies and other property. I know English is not our first language, but misappropriation, you all know, it's just a nice word for theft. And you cannot burden the Ombudsman to investigate a criminal offense. I leave it to the police to do that. Can I use the mic?
Sure. Is that better? Okay. But very soon, ladies and gentlemen, the draft bill on the prevention of torture legislation is passed through the first hurdle, that is the National Assembly. In that piece of legislation, the Ombudsman is burdened to investigate all cases of alleged torture. Now, if you, Steve, may I ask you just to look at, there's a map of Namibia on that presentation of mine, just to flag it for us here on this model, Ombudsman with multiple function, suits our particular circumstances in Namibia very well. We are barely 2.4 million people in a country with the size of, you have to imagine, 824,000 268 square kilometers. We are only 2.1 person per square kilometers. You understand it? It is a big country, well, land, a mass, but small population. And that is one of the challenges which I don't need to speak about for the Ombudsman. But let us come to the crux of the presentation. Many scholars, writers, and fellow Ombudsman hold the view of the position that a Ombudsman with multiple functions cannot be effective. They reason that some of the mandates may be neglected or they may not receive equal attention. This is a view which does not hold water, and I will dispel it now for you with my experience as an ombudsman with multiple mandates. Let us just look at the membership of the Namibian Ombudsman. The Namibian Ombudsman is a member of the International Ombudsman Institute, a member of the Global Alliance of Human Rights Institutions, the African Network of National Human Rights Institutions, the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association, the African Court Coalition, and I'm in the process to apply for accreditation under with the AU Commission on Human and People's Rights. And beyond those times, that is, we did not bribe our way into to be members of that, and we pay our dues to the different institutions. But the Ombudsman of Namibia was also a founding member of the now defunct African Ombudsman Association. My predecessor, Dean's Governor, referred to yesterday or the day before to that association. The Ombudsman of Namibia is also a founding member of NANDRI, Network of African Human Rights Institutions. Now can you see, this is Atlantic Ocean. This is border South Africa. That is border Angola. This is Botswana. And up there is bordering Zambia, Zimbabwe. So it is, here is a border post. And we have to receive and visit those communities, very small communities. That with the Angolan border, with the Botswana border. So it's rather a big country. But Gumri accredited the Namibian Ombudsman with a status A accreditation. My friend and colleague Joseph spoke about it. We've already in 2006, We were re-accredited in 2011, but in 2016 it was deferred because of our outdated legislation. The Ombudsman Act was the 7th Act which went through our National Assembly in 1990. So it is the Act 7 of 1990. You can understand it is totally outdated. The Paris Principles, of which Joseph also referred to, came into its existence in 1993, when there was already an ombudsman. But human rights is not the business solely of national human rights institutions. But unfortunately, we ombudsmen allow them to make it their sole business. It is the business of ombudsman too. Joseph MP referred to it. But let me just share quickly with you the different dimensions of the ombudsman. In the area, the ombudsman is primarily viewed as a public defender, defender of human rights, and also the defender of the public against bureaucracy. Ombudsman's primary task is helping to ensure that the government respects its citizens' human rights. The Ombudsman is presented as a citizen's defender, champion or protector of human rights, and a guardian of law, redresser of public complaints. The Ombudsman has been said to be a concept entrenched within a democratic system as a safeguard against government abuse of individual liberties. The Ombudsman helps individuals by giving them a chance to exercise their right to make a complaint where they would otherwise fear to do. The Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights also recognizes the important contribution that ombudsman institutions can make as another element in the national human rights system, even without the explicit mandate of human rights. How do we manage this broad mandate with the complaints we receive? We receive on an average 4,000 complaints, covering all the mandates. But there are sometimes, and I speak about other colleagues too, that we make special reports because of systemic issues. And one of the reports which I made in the very early days as an ombudsman was the investigation into the circumstances under which trial-awaiting inmates are detained in our police detention facilities. I find it horrendous. It is not a place for human beings. And I can say it's still the case. Another report I termed is This Justice. There's a special report into the inordinate delays in the preparation of appeal and review records of proceedings for submission to the registrar of the High Court. On my environmental mandate, I have invested very interesting investigation and report into the complaints of civil society, NGOs, and individuals on Namibia's overutilization of its seal population and the way they are harvested or killed. Civil society organizations as far as Canada came to address me in one of the public hearings. I made my report. All these reports are available on our website. One which I investigate out of own motion is the one it's a report on the circumstances how a 4-year-old boy met his death in the police detention facilities. It was shocking when the newspapers reported it. The mother was arrested for shoplifting. She was detained, detained with a 4-year-old boy. And you know, police officers, colleagues, like those of we monitor detention facilities. And that mother and very briefly, mother and a fellow inmate got in an argument, and the person, out of frustration, she couldn't fight with the mother, took the little boy and hit his head against the wall. 2 days later, he died. I made my investigation and recommendations for the police. I started with a baseline study on human rights in Namibia, which informed the development of a National Human Rights Action Plan. I've developed a companion and printed a compendium of international human rights law for members of parliament. That's all the international, regional and sub-regional human rights instruments which Namibia ratified or signed, with all the concluding observations and recommendations from treaty bodies. I developed a draft. When I say I refer to my office and my colleagues, a white paper on indigenous people's rights. It is hanging there now for 4 or 5 years. I noticed that His Excellency the President mentioned it in the State of the Nation address. It will be very soon before Cabinet. And we also report on the investigation of complaints by children against the child care facility. That is why we have a children's advocate. 2 years ago, I've developed a report on, and it's a report on the national inquiry into racism, and other forms of discrimination and tribalism. I was assisted by civil society members. I made my recommendations. I gave the particular ministries and institutions on receipt of the report 6 months to inform me how they implemented or intend to implement my recommendations. I received notice of information from the Office of the Prime Minister that they will collectively respond on my report, or to my report. That report is dated October 2017, and it's now 2019. No response. But I will speak later to know how I will enforce that. And the very interesting, I received a complaint from the official opposition in Parliament against the executive. I styled that report, a government of laws, not of men. It will be soon on the, I said it, I gave them 2 months to respond. Both the opposition and government in 2 days' time. The 2 months will be expired. But the Ombudsman of Namibia, and like many human rights commissions, we serve as a bridge between government and civil society. Civil society sometimes do not trust us, and the same with government. As I said to you, the Ombudsman of Namibia earned its stripes. Let me demonstrate to you. Very recently, government approached me to set a forum where civil society and government can engage. I asked, why didn't you approach civil society yourselves? Why me? They said, your institution is the only institution which civil society trusts. We are busy. We've already our first meeting. The next one will be the 8th, and the one with government will be on the 12th of November. As I told you, legislation is outdated. We are busy, but you know, state drafters. They find always something wrong there. My question marks. We have to discuss it. So it's still there with them, so it will be discussed. Hopefully it will be soon a new Ombudsman Act of 2020. Precisely 30 years later. Now you see the vastness of the country. How do we comply with accessibility? These head office, these are regional offices. It's only 5 in the country, in the big country. But we try to bring the office closer to the people, because in Namibia, some of these places are so remote, ladies and gentlemen, same in your countries and our African countries, that they don't even have reception of the national radio. What about cell phones? I'm not even talking about the internet. So that is what they want to see. That's the regional office of Keetmanshoop. They have to travel to the South African border. The border post, the police detention facilities, and whole community meetings. So that is how we reach the people sometimes. As I said, we monitor detention facilities, and that is why, if you have received a newsletter from, they said it's very soon, of the center, IOE, there's a summary of a case where we discovered illegal, but we term our ministry illegal immigrants. That are, they were persons from Zambia, Angola, Tanzania, Malawi. They were arrested by our immigration officials and detained in the police holding cells without warrants of detention. They didn't want to release them, and we approached the court on an urgent basis, and they were released. Challenges? Oh, it's not a place to mention, but let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, with in determining both the present and future challenges of Ombudsman, the following questions can be justifiably posed. Are we powerful enough, resourceful enough, influential enough, effective enough, funded enough, appreciated enough, innovative enough, that is independent enough, to respond to the cries of our citizens as they seek protection of their rights, good governance, better life, peace, and a more equitable future. Is the jurisdiction of the Ombudsman focused or too broad for efficiency and effectiveness? Ladies and gentlemen, I ask these questions because institutions like men, women can never tired, institutions like men can reach levels of exhaustion and therefore fail on their mandates. However, I don't say it just because I'm in Nigeria and want to please the Nigerians. It's still what I'm going to say now. However, I draw comfort from Ben O'Leary, a Nigerian poet, when he says, "The exhausted are those who have come to the end of their powers of imagination, who have limited their possibilities, who have fought themselves into the dead end of what they call the highest point of civilization. However, there is no exhaustion where there is much to be hoped for, much to be worked towards." The Ombudsman of Namibia is not exhausted yet, despite its multiple functions. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that what this Nigerian vote, and I invite the Nigerians to go look and see whether I quoted him correctly. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. No oversight of the Namibian Ombudsman.
Thank you very much, Advocate John Walters. And two key issues that is a takeaway from me, and this connects to John Whittle's presentation as well, that the way you interpret your mandate as an ombudsman goes a long way to the outcomes that you will encounter. If you, first of two things, the interpretation of your mandate and the personality of the individual as well. In other words, where some people will see, nothing. Another person can see something, I think that makes a difference. The Ombudsman of Namibia has constitutional supremacy, to use this word, which means it's embedded in the Constitution. And, it has independence to a very large extent. But it has a lot of functions as well. It investigates prisons, detention centers. And that was why we found out the 4-year-old boy that died. And is expected to take action. And even the torture bill now is giving us that mandate to be able to investigate cases of torture. I think it's a very huge responsibility. But looking at his ending statement and quoting the Nigerian author, thank you very much. Nigerians are doing great things all over the world, so thank you for recognizing that. Yes, it means that he's not exhausted because there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of job waiting, there are a lot of mandates, it's expanding. So this interpretation of mandate, I think, is something we have to keep, back and long as we move on. So before we go to our next speaker, I hope our long-expected Tony Juku is here with us. Tony Juku is here. Can we just see Tony Juku? We've been expecting you. And so that they see whom we've been expecting. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I went to the other station. I didn't know this was going on. I'm very sorry.
That's fine. All is well that ends well, Shakespeare. Now, like I said, Tony Juku is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian National Human Rights Commission. So we're glad to have you here. So the next presenter is going to be Honorable Akal Batak from Pakistan. We are happy that you were able to make it all the way from your province to Islamabad and then Dubai, and then you stop somewhere else?
Istanbul.
To Istanbul, and then before you're able to get to Abuja. That's wonderful.
14 hours.
14 good hours. So we are grateful that you made it, and it shows who you are. It shows that you're a man of tenacity, and you're a man that overcomes challenges easily. And when he arrived at the airport, the immigration said, well, yes, we'll give you visa on arrival, but we need international credit card.
Yes, and we had not.
And he told them, look, I have my money to pay for your visa, but I don't do all this credit. He said, no, we don't touch money here. So we just need to do that. But you know what? They were able to resolve it at the end. So we're glad to have you.
If I am allowed, I would say
Yeah, please.
I may feel difficulty in long standing.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I may firstly say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and good morning as well as good day as well to all of you. Briefly, I may say that I am the ombudsman of one of the provinces of Pakistan coming here and to say about the challenges, the ombudsman and challenges, prospects and issues of ombudsman regarding human rights. Next. This is my introduction, and it has already been made, so it is not necessary to read it out again. Next. I mean,
Yeah, so you can see.
I would not take too much time, but only say that the Ombudsman institution is century old, rooted in Islamic and other religious tradition as well. It is to the government to intervene and enjoin good and forbid wrong in order to keep everything in accordance with Sharia. The institution of Ombudsman has now spread into really all over the world. This institution provides speedy, inexpensive and effective remedy to suppress the oppressed segments of the society against administrative excesses, neglect and nepotism and etc. In our case, we have the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and Chapter 1 that guarantees fundamental rights to the citizens. Like I would say, a few of them, like safeguards as to arrest and detention, forced labor, protection against retrospective punishment, right of fair trial, speech, right to information, right to education, health facility, drinking water, and etc., which makes them primarily a subject of judicial concern and oversight. If one asks me about the institution of Ombudsman, my reply would be the poor man's court. If somebody cannot go to the High Court and Supreme Court, where you can, somebody would engage the lawyer, the counsel, it would having not so much money, he or she can come to the Ombudsman, and it is really, I may say, poor man's court. Prompt redressal of genuine grievance is the minimum and needs to be done to sustain faith and public service. To achieve the desired goal, the office of Ombudsman has to be independent of executive, which is obligated to act in aid of Ombudsman. Again, in this era, the institution of Ombudsman was firstly established in federal level. In Pakistan, it was firstly established as a federal Muhatasib in 1983, and then after in other provinces like Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, and at the end our Prime Minister Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where mostly Pathan and Afghan tribes reside, the institution of Ombudsman were established. This idea, as I said that it's a poor man court, this idea was well received by the population, majority of even which today is unable to afford inexpensive litigation and is sacred of making the courts to act for securing their fundamental rights. As I say that in Pakistan, in civil courts as in criminal courts, just like High Court and the Supreme Court, it takes more time, in years, 5 years, 3 years, up to 10 years, whereas our Act as Provincial Ombudsman Act provides to decide the cases in only 6 months. And I am pleased to say that in my office we are to decide the issues just in 2 to 3 months. The success of this office led to the replication, and today 12 Ombudsman offices exist across the country with varying jurisdiction. I may say that we have tax ombudsman, specialized tax ombudsman, insurance ombudsman, banking ombudsman, harassment against women or harassment against men. It can be traditional, it can be, yes, our act provides for the same, traditional concern for complaints of maladministration. The office that I happen to hold in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is one of the traditional jurisdiction. It has a long, jurisdiction comparatively to that of tax, insurance, banking, harassment. They are specific to the areas, and the office of my one and that of federal ombudsman has vast jurisdiction and tackles complaints of maladministration and injustice in relation to public sector institutions. We cannot go for private to private business, and we here and we take the complaints admitted which are against the public sector institution. There are other institutions of accountability as well, but this one stands of uniqueness of features of its grievance redressal mechanism, such as I may say that the simplicity of procedure, transparency of investigations, simply, speedy and inexpensive. In my office, not a penny is involved in deciding the issues. Redressal of complaints, needlessness of legal and unlike in litigation and formal interaction, all geared to making administrative justice accessible. This is very cheap, very inexpensive justice to be done with the human rights violations. This is a map of Pakistan, and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we may say that we have a headquarters at Peshawar and other 3 regional offices and 3 divisions, and rest of 26 plus 7 districts of the province, that makes 34. We have 34 districts in the province and all over the can, and we are holding our offices as well. Punjab, Balochistan and Sindh, they are the bigger provinces like comparatively to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and they have altogether a whole area. They have, Punjab has 36, Sindh has 26 and Balochistan has 28 offices to hear the cases. Well, the government functionaries are now accountable for all of their actions which fall within the definition of maladministration to protect the human rights of the general masses. We hear cases simply on simple application. The most prominent features of the institution are independence from the executive authority, easy accessibility to the complainants, informality of procedure to protect human rights, and expensive justice to the citizen. The independence, the section 3 of our Act, which provides that the provincial ombudsman shall, in all matters, perform his functions and exercise his powers fairly, honestly, diligently, and independently of the executive. E is capital here. The executive means the chief minister, the cabinet, and the government functionaries, and all executive authorities throughout the province shall act and aid of the provincial ombudsman. I may say that if I have no 100% powers to perform my duties independently of the executive, but I can say that I have the powers to up to 95% to act independently of the executive of my province. Strengthening of ombudsman in Pakistan. I may say that strengthening 22nd FPO meeting at Karachi, Pakistan. We convene after 3 months a meeting in Pakistan and various provinces to strengthen the institution of ombudsman. All the ombudsmen in Pakistan have established a forum of Pakistan Ombudsman FPO, which convenes regular quarterly meetings at country level to discuss, resolve issues faced by the institution as well as human rights related issues. This is one of the picture. Volume of complaints. What is the volume and how can we hear? During the year 2018, more than 78,000 complaints were received by the federal ombudsman. On Pakistan level, the federal ombudsman received more than 78,000 complaints. Majority of them were decided with 99.99% execution. Here we in Pakistan, we do just not decide the issues, but we are able to execute and to get it implemented as well. While alone programs of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa total 1235, 1,235 complaints were registered, out of which 991 complaints were disposed of relating to the human rights violations. Basically, human rights violation we would discuss later on. Violation and merit and appointments, stoppage of salaries, pension issues, drinking water problems, etc. The organization against which greater number of complaints were registered are as follows. Elementary and secondary education, it is almost every year, elementary and secondary education we receive more complaints in that area. Then health department, then local government and rural development department, public sector, universities of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, police department and deputy commissioners, district. These are the numbers of major complaint cases. Causes of complaints. Then we decided to make efforts to sort out the causes of maladministration and violation of human rights and the departments against whom the number of complaints were high and steps were needed for improvement and their working. The following were major causes of complaints were pointed out. These were violation of merit, rules, law and regulation. Delay in appointment against retired government servants quota. This is a right to anybody whose father is retired and his son or his daughter can be appointed against. Pension transfer release problems, request for release of salary, DP fund, non-issuance of appointment orders, delay and promotion cases, recovery of dues, arrears, appointment against deceased government servants quota, delay in processing of death, financial compensation. These are the major causes of complaints receiving in our institutions. This was the table. Male complaints where male members coming with complaints are more than female members. In our province, not at federal level, I may say again in my province. Child 3, anonymous 10 and so moto. We in the act, our act provides for so moto action too. We in Pakistan, it is the only Supreme Court and then the Ombudsman of federal level and provincial level, where we take so moto cognizance of any information against anybody, against any public institution. Nobody is, if somebody does not come to with an application, we can take so moto action against. And previous year I took 11 cases on my information, so moto total comes to 1235. This is years wide break. As in my province, the institution was established in 2011 and up to 2008 there were 9,007 complaints, more than 9,000 complaints were issued. As the education literacy rate is much low in our province, as far as northern areas and southern areas of our province, people are residing in far-flung areas, having no transport and no communication. Therefore, they are unaware of the institution, and centrally, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa people are aware, and mostly the people are coming. We tried our best to inform, to make aware the people through radio, through the television, through media, newspaper, etc. I myself telecast my interviews on the radio and on the television, etc. Relief granted during previous years in the following human rights issues. Violation of merit 131 and just like appointment against right to 27. This is is the finding of specimen of findings, recommendation we gave in our cases. The only specimen, what else? What else? And this is a complainant's feedback. When the case is decided, then the complainants always send their letters of thanks. This is letter of thanks for quick reversal of grievance from one of the complainant, and good is written by me on 29th of April. This is another letter, feedback from the complainant. We have placed 2 to 3 here just to whatever. Yes, issues, challenges and prospects, which was the main, I may say, regardless of scope and nature of jurisdiction, challenges with varying degrees of fairness are common to all and include digitization of record. We in Pakistan accept the federal ombudsman all over the premise. The information technology has revolutionized the world and organization working with unknown capacity by virtue of automation, digitization of record and use of information and communication technology. Online working is still far away. In my province, we are trying best, but problems are there. Capacity building. These are the main issues. There is a dire need for capacity building of staff engaged in the conduct of investigation. It is to end. 3 resource complaints. And we have very short of funds allocated by the government for compliance and execution. The compliance and execution, the federal government is 99%, 5.99%, and we have problem. The recommendations are anything but judicial degrees, hence the execution problem. We have the execution problem to some extent. Children right, 6 resolution of grievances, 7 distortion of facts, delayed response from agencies. These are the issues facing in our country, okay, being faced. And as for prospects, I may say, as the saying goes, every sable cloud has a silver lining, means that you should never feel hopeless because difficult times always lead to better days. The challenges and problems notwithstanding, the prospects of institution look bright and strong to dispel about its desirability, viability and vitality as a harbinger of hope. A person who goes ahead and makes known the approach of others. The point is embedded in the history of institution over the past. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to represent my province, Pakistan, as a speaker and thankful to all of you, the distinguished host, as well as the guests present here. Thank you.
I think they deserve another round of applause. Thank you very much, Honorable Katak. That's a very comprehensive presentation. When I was negotiating with him, I said 10 slides, is it? Yes, initially it was 24 slides, I said 10 slides. But he's a very wise man. He decided to make it 19. not 24, but 10. So he's still within the borderline. So, but that's
my friend said that I'm not exalted, but I may say that I am right.
Thank you very much. The provincial ombudsman is a poor man's force. Inexpensive, transparent, and 95% independent of the executive. And a couple of times he talked about, I have the powers. I have the powers, which means they are making an impact in that society, that system, which is good. And if you look at the data, and of course the feedback, which means the citizens are very happy about the work they are doing in his province, which is good because you serve the people. So when the people comes back to you and say, we like what you're doing, I think that's the greatest outcome we can wish for. So do we give him a round of applause? Thank you very much. So now some negotiations seem to be going on. Ojukwu, you have something to tell us?
I just wanted to be sure whether my presentation is with me.
Okay, well, no, but you didn't send to me. But please send to me. Yes. So let's call upon Herbert Mackenzie.
Your IT specialist. This is not opening.
Yeah, you need somebody to man that. To open it?
Please open this, please.
It can't open.
It's not opening.
No, you can just open it.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Herbert Mackenzie. I think he wears several hats. He's an IT specialist. He's been helping us out here. He's a retired military captain. And he's actually the deputy public defender as well. So I think it's always good for an ombudsman to be multi-talented or multi-skilled. I think it helps. And to have a military bearing, because he saw that we were struggling here, he jumped in and get things sorted out. So I think having all those skills will always find his way and his space, at some point. So we're happy, and he has just told me that his presentation is short and straight to the point. I said I wouldn't expect anything less. I mean, it has to be with immediate effect, and it has to be straight to the point. So, Honorable Mackenzie, so you can just come and start introducing us to your presentation, okay? You want to?
Open. It's not open.
Yes. And Honorable Mackenzie is all the way from Jamaica. We heard how Jamaica entered this podium yesterday. We were all there.
Yes.
They pay respects to motherland. They say they are mainly from Nigeria. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I thought I heard that they are mainly from Nigeria. Okay. Ghana was part of it as well. Okay, good. Mainly Nigeria, Ghana, which is very heartwarming. That are back home, they feel at home, and they are planning to contribute to the local economy as well. You understand? Which is good, go to the market, have a feel of the people, products, and so on. So I think for their final declaration, they have to add this very important point. You understand? that there's a connection, meeting of minds, and so on and so forth. I think that's important. So Honorable Mackenzie is ready for us now.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you.
Over 30 million violations of human rights occur every minute on this planet. The violators never take holiday. Most of the victims of violations are poor people, and as my colleague from Pakistan says, poor people can't afford court, so they have to come to the poor people court. In other words, the ombudsman will similarly have to refrain from taking holidays, just like the violators. Now, I'm going to approach it from a different perspective, because the issues that we all face as ombudsman are many, and were we to outline all of them, we'll be here until next week. So we're going to highlight the few that affect us mainly generally in the Caribbean, and particularly in my country, Jamaica. So we have these issues as the abuse by law enforcement authorities, excesses by correctional officers, and health-related issues. And the challenges we have are the lack of statutory authority, or not enough statutory authority, resistance to change, absence of sanctions, and unenforceability. Those are the challenges. I'm going to deal with each issue separately, and then challenge separately, and then look at some prospects. Now, let's go back to the first issue. Abuse by law enforcement authorities. This is where the ombudsman, certainly in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, has the greatest amount of tension with the executive. There's always friction between the work of the ombudsman and the executive, and it doesn't matter which type of ombudsman you are. In Jamaica, we have niche ombudsman, like my office, which is the public defender's office, and the public defender is here. She's right at the back of the room, Ms. Alina Steinberg. We deal with general jurisdictional matters. So anybody with any complaint can come to us. We have an ombudsman we call Independent Commission of Investigation, security forces shooting, that falls under their jurisdiction. We have one called Office of the Children's Registry, matters to do with children, that ombudsman deal with that. We have electoral matters, electoral ombudsman deal with that, we call her election commissioner. And we have political ombudsman, who is a part of the Jamaican delegation here. She deals with election campaigning and political party matters. And of course we have what we call the Integrity Commission that deals with integrity-related matters of public officials. So, in any one of those niche jurisdictions that you work, you are going to have tension between you and security forces. In Jamaica now, the country has declared several parishes, or in some of your country, provinces, state of emergency. And by declaring the state of emergency in that parish, it imposed the security forces, police and soldiers, to detain anybody almost indefinitely for any reason that they perceive as good enough to be detained. And that's a constant struggle that we are now facing. Our office and the executive always in a tussle on that one. I know that in other countries, such a declaration would be actually carried out not by police but by soldiers. But I guarantee you that the issue is very much the same. Let's look at excesses by correctional officers. No other person, nowhere on this planet, is more vulnerable to abuse by the state than a person isn't in the care of the state. Whether you are a ward of the state as a child, whether you are detained at the police station for investigation, or whether you're actually serving a prison sentence in a prison or a correctional facility, you are the most susceptible to state abuse. Because almost always in a correctional facility, the officers that man the facility believe that they are Lord God over you. In addition to that, because your freedom is so restricted, your access to the ombudsman is similarly restricted. We, at our office, we continue to have outreach program and to talk to people in the prison, educating both the inmates and the prison officers as to the rights of persons. Because you know, some correctional officers believe that the fact that you are serving a prison sentence, the moment you pass through those prison gates, your human rights cease to exist. And I'm willing to say, or to bet, that that obtains everywhere. Pakistan, African states, Europe, Asia, back in the Caribbean. There's always this propensity to believe that the person sentenced to serving a sentence, or sentenced to prison, I should say, has his rights taken away the moment that prison wall climbs behind him. And in developing countries like ours, all prison facilities are overcrowded. So in addition to the punishment imposed upon you by the courts, you have the fact of the discomfort and inhumane treatment, and then you put on top of that the abuse by correctional officers. Now, health issues. This is one of the broadest. In fact, it rivals the abuse by the security forces in its quantity and the amount and volume. But it's broad in that it can range from euthanasia, which some people call mercy killing, right back to a patient's right to refuse blood transfusion or blood by virtue of religious belief. Now, the most common one in the Caribbean is the right of a female to determine abortion. Question whether or not the female should have the right or has the right to terminate a pregnancy regardless of how the pregnancy came about. There are some people who think that even if she was raped by a stranger, the fact of conception means that there's a life and she and no other doctor has any right to take it. Of course, you know the opposite argument, and I know that that debate is not confined to Jamaica or the Caribbean, that side of the Atlantic. It is right over this side as well. In fact, from presentations gathered so far, I think some of the states on this continent has another female-related issue, that of female genital mutilation. That's a matter which is not common in the Caribbean. In fact, in Jamaica, we don't have that. And those are probably for reasons which are not, which do not lend themselves to this discussion here today. Now, those are the main challenges, and there are more. The main issues rather. Now, let's look at some of the challenges. Lack of statutory authority. By that, I mean, some ombudsman offices are created by civil legislation. I think Ghana's, you're entrenched in the Constitution, and I suspect from your presentation that coming from Pakistan, you too can be created by the Constitution. No, the point is, if you are created by ordinary legislation, you will find that there's a difference in treatment to the Ombudsman office if it was created and entrenched in the Constitution. With ordinary legislatively created the Ombudsman office, you'll find that government agencies of the executive, act to you with less promptitude, and even though they don't defy authority, there's no difference at all, and there's almost like a snail pace response to you. Constitutionally entrenched, generally will be different. It's a matter of human nature, because they know that you're coming from a higher seat of power. Now, that in addition to that, some institutions, some ombudsman office, which are entrenched by ordinary legislation, have that legislation expressly restricting their remit. So for example, in Jamaica, we are created by non-ordinary legislation. It's called the Public Defender Interim Act. There's a provision in the Act that excludes the army from our jurisdiction. But the police force falls right within our square. Now, this anomaly plays itself out in a case where you have like a state of emergency, joint police military operation. A shot is fired from a team of police officers. Somebody gets injured or killed. The public defender can investigate the incident. But suppose it turns out that ballistic report shows that that shot came from the soldier's weapon. You see the anomaly? The public defender cannot investigate this one. Even though it's one incident, two people shoulder fire. That's one of the challenges that you face when you have a statutory authority restricting your remit. In addition to that, we have an example I want to share with you. Oh, the statutory authority and the interpretation of the court curtail our activities. There's a gentleman in Jamaica. He's a member of the gay community. He decided to challenge a provision under our Offences Against the Person Act. The provision is the one that makes anal intercourse illegal. The law calls it buggery. I think in many other states they call it buggery too. Yeah. So, obviously, to maintain his relationship with his same-sex partner, that act, which the law recognizes as buggery, would have to be committed. Of course, in his view, it's a breach of his constitutional rights to choose a partner. So he challenged the provision in court. When the provision came before the first court, the court of first instance with the High Court, about a dozen religious bodies applied to be joined as interested parties, and the public defender office applied to be joined as interested parties. The person being named as defendant was the Attorney General. She was Attorney General. So the Attorney General resisted the public defender's application to be joined as an interested party, but curiously did not resist any of the other 12 religious organizations to be joined. Of course, the court of first instance ruled against us. Said, no, you can't join as interested party. You have no jurisdiction. But these 12 religious organizations can join, and they did join. So the public defender appealed that decision. So we ended up in court of appeal as a public defender against the Attorney General. Of course, you know, the court of appeal ruled against us and said in this ruling that you, based upon this provision in the statute that created you, your role is restricted exclusively to investigating matters. So, legislative restriction, and that's one of the biggest challenges we're having. You heard the public defender who heard this, they said the statute that created us was an interim act, meant that it was supposed to be an interim act until it's absorbed in the Constitution through an amendment, and then entrench us the way we are entrenched in Ghana and in Pakistan and in other jurisdictions. The next challenge is the absence of sanctions. Now, usually the power of sanction is more stringent and greater when the public defender office is entrenched in the Constitution, then it is created by a standalone piece of legislation. And we have that face in Jamaica too. Now, when the Act does not give enough sanctions, you find that people, with the same way they treat you, if you're not if you're not in the Constitution, they treat you the same way. In Jamaica, for example, our Act, it gives the public defender the power of summons. You're investigating a case and you want an entity at the head to come forward to answer questions, you summon him or her. We have never had experience with it to come. But the law didn't make a provision for you to take any action or to bring criminal sanction if this person refuses to come or just float public defender and say, I'm not coming here. Or if they come, say, I'm not answering the questions. So, to that extent, I don't know if it's bureaucratic discipline, but we have never had anybody not come. When they do come, what they do come with is come with a long submission to challenge jurisdiction. It happens so frequently that we have a stop response, and usually they respond to us. It's pure saber-rattling. Just say, we come, we are here, but we didn't have to come. We listen to the submission, and they don't move on. Resistance to change as a challenge. Every government bureaucratic institution is affected by inertia. Talk about change, introduce change, and everybody go to the point of wanting to get a heart attack. Nobody wants to change. You're in a comfort zone, you don't want to come out of it. That's one of the problems that we experience in Jamaica, and I suppose that most people who do ombudsmanry experience that. A quick example. Our police force, it's called the JCF, Jamaica Constabulary Force. It's an organization which is 153 years old. It was created way back then when the white planter class felt threatened by the local masses, and the uprising and the agitation against colonial rule in Jamaica was obvious. So to protect themselves from the so-called rebels and underclass, they created this organization called the police force. Now, it has not changed over 150 years, apart from uniform and other matters that have caused it to flow with time. So for example, you're moving from a flintlock weapon to automatic weapons, they are going to change. You're moving from cart and buggy to car, they are going to change. So by and large, most of the changes are changes that have been occasioned by the sweep of change worldwide and the course of normal human life. Now, one thing that hasn't changed is the mode of investigation. If my Pakistani friend comes to Jamaica and they allege against him that he stole the material, once I go report it, there's no investigation, they come and arrest him. And after the arrest, they investigate. So you find the creed is arrest first and investigate later. And I said, if I'm in Jamaica, I've lived in Barbados, so it's in Barbados, another Caribbean island. I've lived in the British Virgin Islands, another Caribbean island state, a colony, and happens the same. So it's not unique to Jamaica, and I rather suspect it might not be unique to some of our Commonwealth states to investigate. No, the public defender is here, she knows. We have been trying, her predecessors have tried, and this predecessors before have tried. We have tried from time immemorial to get the police to change. They are so resistant to change, you think they are stones. And that's not unique to them, they're not going to change. So that's another challenge. Next one is on enforceability. Several ombudsman office here, based on presentations I've heard so far, have no power of enforceability. Now, if you have no power of enforceability, there's nothing you can do other than make your recommendations and just stand or fall by your recommendations. Now, we believe that the Public Defender's Office in Jamaica, and we are saying it to you that you should accept that position too, that it's not fair for you to create an office, endow it with investigating powers, and then when the office is finished, you expect the office to go into moral suasion to effect it. Can't be. Let me just quickly wrap up on the prospects. Now, don't go a minute. Having said all of that, all is not lost in ombudsmanry, because there are certain changes that occur from time to time, world over, that even though it's not driven by ombudsmanry or by the ombudsman, but what those changes do, it's alert officialdom and state actors to the fact that there's oversight, and if you don't toe the line, you can get in trouble. So, for example, you have the recently, you remember recently they had somewhere in Europe this big demonstration against climate change, an example of public agitation.
Extinction Rebellion.
Pardon?
Extinction Rebellion.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And led by a young girl called something like Greta Thunberg or something. So those are one of the activities that will cause officialdom to take up and look. Public agitation or increased agitation by citizens. Another one is the rise of NGOs. Many NGOs with specific target areas rise up, give a voice, quite persistent, and usually depending on the members, could be a force to reckon with. And the next one is finally more and more politicians and government officials are being called upon to account. Take for example, your previous president, Mr. General Musharraf, you know charges are pending against him, or at least the prosecuting authorities is looking forward to charge him. We heard recently, thank you very much, that Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, whose political career is on the line, if not finished, as he comes out, they have charges dangling, ready to drag him into court. And in fact, even posthumously, General Franco of Spain, they have exhumed his remains posthumously, decades, taking it from the cemetery of honor, and is going to carry it, and has carried it, to a normal, ordinary cemetery for General Franco to bury him like a normal citizen. Like I said, those are not necessarily works by ombudsmen, but what they do, they command government authorities to stand up and take notice that there's oversight, and if there's oversight, the harm can reach you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is
Thank you, Deputy Public Defender Jamaica. A lot of thought-provoking information that is just given to us. I saw a lot of gentlemen and women nodding their heads when he was making their points, which means some of the issues, challenges cut across countries and regions and so on and so forth. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Tony Ojukwu, who will tell us a little bit about himself, to talk about the essence of networking and collaboration in the promotion and protection of human rights, because no one institution can do it alone. So let's give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon already. Good afternoon. Yeah, sorry I missed you in the morning. I went to the wrong venue. I'm here. Well, you've heard about Ojukwu before in Nigeria, the warlord. It's not this one. It's not the human car. It's not the human rights defender. Actually, I studied law in school, both at the first degree and master's degree level, and I had previous experience in the Office of Attorney General, and then I worked with the Electoral Commission, and then before I started working in the Human Rights Commission since 2001. And I was appointed Executive Secretary of the Commission last year. And actually, I'm the first staff of the Commission who has grown to the ranks and reached the position of Executive Secretary. So we say this is one is an insider. I'm not a politician. I'm a career civil servant that has risen to the peak of his career. The presentation this morning is going to concentrate on collaborations. Are you able to get it? Okay. Thank you very much. the positive role of the Ombudsman in the promotion and protection of human rights, but we want to zero in the area of collaborations, how NHRIs can use collaborations in advising government and aligning national legislation to their human rights obligations. We look at the added value in building synergies with the Ombudsman in undertaking sensitization and outreach activities for the promotion and protection of socioeconomic human rights. We look at effective strategies to engage civil societies and other relevant stakeholders, and then we look at the challenges to collaboration with the Ombudsman. Of course, we have been having definitions of Ombudsman, from the official Ombudsman to the classic one to the financial Ombudsman and so on and so forth. I don't think we need to bother so much about that. Here we have the Public Complaints Commission, which is the classical Ombudsman, and we have the Human Rights Commission, which is the Ombudsman that deals basically on human rights violations. Now, getting to the main issue, which is the essence of collaborations. This is very, very key. Without collaborations, NHRIs cannot do much. Here in Africa, you know, we have the network of African national human rights institutions. In West Africa, we have the West African network of national human rights institutions. And at the global level, we have the Global Alliance of the network of national human rights institutions. And the idea about all this, all national human rights institutions, you know, have both the national obligation to promote and protect human rights, and also to be the constant reminder of their nations to fulfill their international human rights obligations. They must do that because each country at the international level has signed so many treaties, has acceded to so many instruments, there are so many resolutions going on at the UN, at the AU level on human rights. So it's the duty of the national human rights institution in every country to make sure that whatever are the commitments of the country at that regional or international level, that the country fulfills its own obligation by making sure that it's the same situation at home. And in doing this, collaboration is key. Collaboration is key. The network, of course, must build the capacity of NHRIs to carry out their duties. And that is the strength in the collaborative work of the network. Gary, for instance, Gary has the working group on business and human rights, working group on the aging, working group on the SDGs, where my brother is the chairperson. And all these working groups are aimed at building the capacity of their various institutions to fulfill the international obligations of the various countries, because each country has a role. If you make all these resolutions at the UN, if you enter into all those treaties, if the NHRIs in the country are not there to make sure that they are on ground, it becomes a talk show. And of course, in collaboration, the NHRIs also encourage themselves. You know how it is, because you share best practices. Like here, why we here listening, as you can see, like Steve was saying, when our colleague Mackenzie was talking about the attitude of law enforcement agents in Jamaica, first of all, I tell them here, all you need to deal with Tony Dubuna is to write a petition against me to the police forces. Whether I'm the Deputy Secretary of Human Rights Commission is immaterial. Once that petition hits there, the next day they're coming to pick me up. I'll be in detention. If somehow within 48 hours they are not able to hold on to me, and I've not dropped some money to secure my bail, after 48 hours they quickly rush to a court and let it be the responsibility of court that it is court that is holding you, is no longer the police. So the court will say, okay, now detain him in prison while the investigation goes on. And this investigation can go on for another 6 months. So it's either go to court and fight for my bail, or if I'm not lucky, I'll stay 6 months in detention. Then one day, they don't have any evidence to prosecute or anything. They they'll now come and the case will be struck out. Meanwhile, I have spent 6 months in detention. So it's the same thing. So when you peer review like this, when you compare those like this, you see that the problems and challenges you're having are not peculiar to you. Then you can now put ideas together on how you can overcome those challenges. Also, in doing collaborative work, NHRIs have led joint actions which lead to the passage of some declarations. Those of us in NHRIs, you remember each time maybe the AU or the GANRI will then will ask you to subscribe to some resolutions, some declarations, and that will help to put pressure of the heads of government and countries to adopt certain declarations. And clear examples are there. We remember in Africa, there is the decriminalization of petty offences in Africa, which enjoined all governments in Africa to adopt measures to pass legislation for the classification of and declaration of petty offences. You remember the Kigali Declaration and Plan of Action on Agenda 2020 and 2063, which is looking at the area of SDGs and the African Development Agenda. These are all declarations and activities at the international level born out of the collaborative effort and pressure from NHRI's collaboration and so on and so forth. Of course, here the recent one on xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Remember, it cut across most countries. Most foreigners in South Africa were targeted by the xenophobic attack. So we mobilized. We the NHRIs mobilized. We sent. We spoke to NARI, and NARI now issued a press statement, requesting the government of South Africa condemning what they have done and asking them to put measures in place to make sure that this kind of xenophobic attacks don't continue. Let us go to, because I think time is actually...
Yeah, we'll have some discussion.
Yes. Now, the added value, for building synergies, when we collaborate, we do a lot, and it is the Commission and other critical stakeholders in the Northeast Nigeria have built collaborations in the area of fighting terrorism. Of course, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act in Nigeria is part of the monitoring committee that helps to make sure that the legislations are realized. And then we have also collaborated with the Public Complaints Commission in Nigeria effectively, in making sure that we don't dissipate our images in areas where others have better competencies. For instance, in the area of right to employment, people who are unjustly treated, administrative procedures, injustices in the public service. So we think that area, the Public Complaints Commission has more competence, and they have mandates very squarely on it. Unless there are human rights issues that are strong on that, we refer those cases to them. And then as well, if people send complaints to them and they find out that the core content is actually human rights, not mere injustice or administrative lapses, they send them to us. And in that way, we have been able to save resources, we have been able to save funds, we have been able to make sure that there is no unnecessary rivalry, because we have our mandates cut out for us, and we collaborate to make sure that we succeed. The most important thing is that Nigerians are benefiting. Now, effective strategies to deal with collaborative civil society. This is very, very key. Now, in Nigeria, for instance, there was a long period of military rule. So, government was not ready to talk with CSOs. In fact, there was a time, if you remember Nadeko in Nigeria, if they want to deal with you, they say you are part of Nadeko, and that means you are against government, and then they go after you. So, but we have tried to do that. What we have tried to do is to be a bridge between the government and civil society groups. For instance, if a civil society group was organizing something and they wanted to invite government, because there's no need talking on your own without getting government involved. What they will do is they collaborate with the commission. Then the commission will invite government to the table and CSO will invite their CSO to the table, and then they meet at the table and talk. Whereas if CSOs wrote direct to government, government will not come. So we have been building that bridge. I think things are a lot better now. Now there are a lot of collaborations are going, and CSOs have, they're leveraged on that, and there's a lot of collaboration between government and CSOs now. Of course, we do common researches together and make publications, and they also help us. There are certain things it's difficult for us to say, but when we collaborate with CSOs, they say it, and nobody can do anything to them. This is you learn the skills and use it to make sure you push your work. Then, of course, we advocate together for legislative changes, policy changes, and CSOs have also known that they cannot change government policy without MDAs. MDAs are ministries, department, and agencies of government. No matter how much a document, a policy document is developed by civil society, they cannot be a federal executive council to push it. It needs a government agency to take it to parliament, to take it to the ministry, to take it to the federal executive council. So they have learned that they must collaborate with us to push across some of these policies, and we made a lot of progress in those areas. In fact, yesterday, the Federal Executive Council, one of the policies we developed with the civilians in conflict and so on and so forth, for the protection of civilians was tabled. Now, the challenges, of course, number one is financial. We have a lot of NRIs all over the world. It's a key problem, but the situation is improving. I talked to my brother from Accra, and he told me that the government is doing well now. They are supporting them enormously. And just a few weeks ago, the president of Nigeria took us by surprise. When they were reading the national budget of Nigeria, he said he was going to add 1 billion naira to the budget of National Human Rights Commission to them do their work. It has never happened before. It has never happened before. So people were calling me on the phone, are you watching the television? I had it on my television. What is happening here? And lo and behold, it was true. How it happened, my brother, he seen the miracles of his God. Because in the past, when I go to the budget office to lobby for, to see how they can increase our budget, they say, my friend, see, the advocacy you have done already, the sensitization you have done already is making people demand for their education, health. You've created enough problem for us. You want us to give you more money to create more problem? I thought my own faith was failing, so I had to be going to donors and so on and so forth. For the government to now realize that they need to give us money to do our work, that means I wish all NHRIs will overcome this problem of funding. Here, we have tried to also entrench it in our law to be a direct charge on government. So whatever money we are giving must be released 100%. The Parliament has guaranteed that through our law. Other ministries, they can give you 100 million. If you get 50% released by the end of the year, you are lucky. But we don't get so much. But whatever is given to us must be released 100%. So at least that's also an improvement. But because of financial problems, a lot of collaborations in NHRs that we have wanted to do, they may not do it. But we have the donor community to help us also. So all you need to do is you get a very smart guy who is very good in doing proposal writing, and I can tell you, by the time you approach 2 or 3 donors, you'll be able to get some support. Then there are also policies and laws that will affect our collaborations. In Nigeria, recently they wanted to do an NGO kind of bill that would kind of censor. So we'll have to fight it with the last drop of our blood, because if that had succeeded, the space would have been narrowed, and I'm sure the next thing they would have come after the Human Rights Commission. So we need to fight together to make sure that the space is not narrowed. Then lack of visibility is also a big issue. NHRIs must make sure that they're very, very visible in what they do. You don't have to be media crazy, but media is a very important strategy for you because, for instance, no matter what we say here today, it ends in this room unless these people go and put it out there for the rest of the world to know what we are doing. So make sure that you are visible through your work, through verifiable work, and that can help you get the support you need to do your work. Because a lot of people, because of lack of capacity, a lot of people are restricted in what they can achieve. But if people see that you have the capacity to do certain things, they come and work together with you, and that will multiply the kind of what you are going to achieve. I think that's my last. Thank you so much.
A round of applause for Toby. I think that's a very fine way to end with this 1 billion. Did you say 10 billion? I think that's a very good way to end.
How much is it?
Yes. I think we have to interrogate, the details of this money. But I think that speaks to what.
You will take us out to.
But I think that speaks to the silent impact the work of the Ombudsman and the National Human Rights Commission can have, will continue to have. It means that the government listens. It may not accept that it listens, but they have a way of listening and monitoring what you're doing and see your consistency, see your level of integrity and all that. And in their lucid moments or in their private corners, they have a way of talking and thinking that, yes, I think something is happening and so on and so forth. I think that's a cause for cheer. It means that wherever we are around the globe, as long as we are committed, we are focused, we are dedicated to what we do, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's a very good information you have just given us. Now, of course, time has a way of running haywire and so on. So it's time to ask questions. It's time to make comments, observations. I go back to how we started. There are no wrong answers. There are no wrong questions. We want to enjoy our freedom of expression to the maximum, at least in this little room. Okay, so who is firing the first one? The first question or comment? Okay, so do we have extra mic? Yeah? No. Okay, don't worry, I'll move around. So you just identify yourself, where you're coming from, and then make it brief.
Jose Escucho is my name. I'm here in Nigeria, Abuja. My first question is to the Honorable from Ghana. You made mention of the fact that part of your monitoring activities, you monitor prayer groups. So I want to know how you go about that, because some of the prayer groups, they pray in the night, and how do you monitor the activities in the night? My second question is to the Nigeria Human Rights Commission, the Executive Secretary. I have been following your activities closely, and I remember the celebrated case of the people that the killings and the judgment, and the decision was that they should be compensated. So I don't know whether that has been done, but can you share with us how you go about enforcing such judgments? Because I have not heard of any appeal, so which means they have accepted your judgment in good faith. Thank you very much.
Okay, the Ombudsman from Botswana.
Thank you very much. I have a question and then a comment. Our colleague from Pakistan showed a table, I think it was statistics, on case management. And they showed that about 80% of the complaints were from males. That's fine. Only 20% were female. So I just wondering why is it happening that way? Maybe there could be something. But the comment I want to make, Steve, is with respect to the issue of ombudsman having a role in human rights protection. We have a difficulty where you are a classical ombudsman, like ourselves, without an express provision, mandate, express mandate being given to us. I mean, we can, everybody said that we can try to stretch the interpretation of maladministration, but I think there's a limit to which we can stretch it, otherwise it will break. Yeah. Without an express mandate, I find it very difficult. All we can do, of course, is advocacy and other things like that. But when it comes to investigations, there's no way in which you can go that route, because you run the risk of either overreaching yourself and people complaining against you, but also even your resources, because the government will never give you enough resources. They know that your mandate is only maladministration. They'll give it to that extent. But if you take more without more resources, it becomes a problem. Those are the kind of challenges I see, Steve, for us as classical ombudsmen. So it is important that even if you are classic, that's why I think we're going this direction of making multiple mandates under ombudsman, so that we have the express mandate and we are able to confidently deal with the issues. Otherwise, we may run into a very difficult situation.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll take answers from, we have about 4 questions so far. So for the prayer groups in Ghana, he wants to know how it's run, whether the chairperson is a pastor as well or something like that.
Right, thank you from Nigeria. We actually don't, how do I put it? We don't go in the night to look to see what they're doing. But it's about certain human rights abuses, such as chaining people who people think are crazy. We chain them to pray for them so that they will recover from their mental illness. That clearly is torture. And it's something that we need to stop. And so when we hear of a prayer camp having some detainees, men, women, all kinds of people, we try to go and find out and make the investigation. And from there, even see if we can take complaints from the representatives of the families to be able to investigate that prayer camp owner and to ensure that the persons are sent to the right place, which is a psychiatric hospital or somewhere else, and not where they are. Then there's also the issue of HIV patients. And some pastors think they can cure HIV. And there's some craze in some parts of the countries from time to time that if you have all the symptoms and you have gone through the orthodox medicine and it appears things are not working, you end up there. So, is that the way we want our people to end their time on earth? So it's about time to make it clear and to talk to the prayer camp owners that that is not you don't deceive people to spend money to refuse treatment because you are pretending that you're going to cure them. So there's a need to also get them to release the patients, go for the proper treatment, among others. So that is the angle. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we talk about issue of compensation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for Tony.
Thank you very much. You remember when those compensations were awarded, it was awarded against the government, the DSS, because those of us who don't know the story, it's about some law enforcement agents invaded some innocent motorcycle riders, taking a credit price. He said he was going to add 1 billion naira to the budget of National Human Rights Commission to never do their work. It has never happened before. It has never happened before. So people were calling me on the phone, are you watching the television? I had it on my television. What is happening here? And lo and behold, it was true. How it happened, my brother, he's seen the miracles of God. Because in the past, when I go to the budget office to lobby for, to see how they can increase our budget, they say, my friend, see, the advocacy you have done already, the sensitization you have done already is making people demand for their education, health. You've created a non-problem for us. You want us to give you more money to create more problem? So, I thought my own faith was failing, so I had to be going to donors and so on and so forth. For the government to now realize that they need to give us money to do our work, that means I wish all NHRIs will overcome this problem of funding. Here, we have tried to also entrench it in our law to be a direct charge on government. So whatever money we are giving must be released 100%. The Parliament has guaranteed that through our law. Other ministries, they can give you 100 million. If you get 50% released by the end of the year, you are lucky. But we don't get so much. But whatever is given to us must be released 100%. So at least that's also an improvement. But because of financial problems, a lot of collaborations in NHRs that we have wanted to do, they may not do it. But we have the donor community to help us also to do our work. So all you need to do is you get a very smart guy who is very good in doing proposal writing, and I can tell you, by the time you approach 2 or 3 donors, you'll be able to get some support. Then there are also policies and laws that will affect our collaborations. In Nigeria, recently they wanted to do an NGO kind of bill that would kind of censor. So we have to fight it with the last drop of our blood, because if that has succeeded, the space would have been narrowed, and I'm sure the next thing they would have come after the Human Rights Commission. So we need to fight together to make sure that the space is not narrowed. Then lack of visibility is also a big issue. NHRIs must make sure that they're very visible in what they do. You don't have to be media crazy, but media is a very important strategy for you, because, for instance, no matter what you say here today, it ends in this room unless these people go and put it out there for the rest of the world to know what you are doing. So make sure that you are visible through your work, through verifiable work, and that can help you get the support you need to do your work. Because a lot of people, because of lack of capacity, a lot of people are restricted in what they can achieve. But if people see that you have the capacity to do certain things, they come and work together with you, and that will multiply the kind of what you are going to achieve. I think that's my last. Thank you so much.
A round of applause for Toby. I think that's a very fine way to end with this 1 billion. Did you say 10 billion? I think that's a very good way to end. Yes. I think we have to interrogate, the details of this money. But I think that speaks to what.
You will take us out there.
But I think that speaks to the silent impact the work of the Ombudsman and the National Human Rights Commission can have, will continue to have. It means that the government listens. It may not accept that it listens, but they have a way of listening and monitoring what you're doing and see your consistency, see your level of integrity and all that. And in their lucid moments or in their private corners, they have a way of talking and thinking that, yes, I think something is happening and so on and so forth. I think that's a cause for cheer. It means that wherever we are around the globe, as long as we are committed, we are focused, we are dedicated to what we do, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's a very good information you have just given us. Now, of course, time has a lot of running hair wire and so on. So it's time to ask questions. It's time to make comments, observations. I go back to how we started. There are no wrong answers. There are no wrong questions. We want to enjoy our freedom of expression to the maximum, at least in this little room. Okay, so who is firing the first one? The first question or comment? Okay, so do we have extra mic here? No. Okay, don't worry, I'll move around. So you just identify yourself, where you're coming from, and then make it brief.
Jose Suspicious, my name. I'm here in Nigeria, Abuja. My first question is to the Honorable from Ghana. You made mention of the fact that part of your monitoring activities, you monitor prayer groups. So I want to know how you go about that, because some of the prayer groups, they pray in the night, and how do you monitor the activities in the night? My second question is to the Nigeria Human Rights Commission, the Executive Secretary. I have been following your activities closely, and I remember the celebrated case of the people that the killings and the judgment, and the decision was that they should be compensated. So I don't know whether that has been done, but can you share with us how you go about enforcing such judgments? Because I have not heard of any appeal, so which means they have accepted your judgment in good faith. Thank you very much.
Okay, the Ombudsman from Botswana.
Thank you very much. I have a question and then a comment. Our colleague from Pakistan showed a table, I think it was statistics, on case management. And they showed that about 80% of complaints were from males. That's fine. Only 20% were female. So I just want to know, why is it? Why is it happening that way? Maybe there could be something. But the comment I want to make, Steve, is with respect to the issue of ombudsman having a role in human rights protection. We have a difficulty where you are a classical ombudsman, like ourselves, without an express provision, express mandate given to us. I mean, we can, everybody said that we can try to stretch the interpretation of maladministration, but I think there's a limit to which we can stretch it, otherwise it will break. Yeah. Without an express mandate, I find it very difficult. All we can do, of course, is advocacy and other things like that. But when it comes to investigations, there's no way in which you can go that route. Because you run the risk of either overreaching yourself and people complaining against you, but also even your resources. Because the government will never give you enough resources. They know that your mandate is only maladministration. They'll give it to that extent. But if you take more without more resources, it becomes a problem. Those are the kind of challenges I see, Steve, for us as classical ombudsmen. So it is important that even if you are classic, that's why I think we are going this direction of making multiple mandates under ombudsman, so that we have the express mandate and we are able to confidently deal with the issues. Otherwise, you may run into a very difficult situation.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll take answers from, we have about 4 questions so far. So for the prayer groups in Ghana, he wants to know how it's run, whether the chairperson is a pastor as well or something like that.
Right, thank you from Nigeria. We actually don't, how do I put it? We don't go in the night to look, to see what they're doing. But it's about certain human rights abuses, such as chaining people who people think are crazy, chain them, to pray for them, so that they will recover from their mental illness. That clearly is torture, and it's something that we need to stop. And so when we hear of a prayer camp having some detainees, men, women, all kinds of people, we try to go and find out and make the investigation. And from there, even see if you can take complaints from the representatives of the families to be able to investigate that prayer camp owner and to ensure that the persons are sent to the right place, which is a psychiatric hospital or somewhere else, and not where they are. Then there's also the issue of the HIV patients. Some pastors think they can cure HIV. And there's some craze in some parts of the countries from time to time that if you have all the symptoms and you have gone through the orthodox medicine and it appears things are not working, you end up there. So, is that the way we want our people to end their time on earth? So it's about time to make it clear and to talk to the prayer camp owners that that is not, I mean, you don't deceive people to spend money to refuse treatment because you are pretending that you're going to cure them. So there's a need to also get them to release the patients, go for the proper treatment, among others. So that is the angle. Yeah.
Okay, so we talk about issue of compensation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for Tony.
Thank you very much. You remember when those compensations were awarded, it was awarded against the government, the DSS, because those of us who don't know the story, it's about some law enforcement agents invaded some innocent motorcycle riders, taking a credit rider. That's these small tricycles. There's a place on Uncompleted where they normally go together in the evening after they had this job. And one day, law enforcement agent went there and shot them, killed so many of them. That and then there was this national uproar. They said they were Boko Haram terrorists. And you know, in this country, once you say anybody's Boko Haram, nobody wants to touch it. So we said, no, this is not possible. In the first place, this is Abuja. And you see how they thankfully linked to Boko Haram. That time, nobody wanted Boko Haram to come to Abuja. So anything you see that anybody who is terrorist in Abuja, people will support you all. So we said, no, but this cannot be right. You know. Now, so we decided to do a public hearing on what happened. And we came to the conclusion that these were innocent young men struggling for livelihood who were just wasted in that way. So we now awarded a total cost of about 135 million against them. They went on appeal. They went to the courts, to restrain us, do all kinds of things. The thing even went to the ECOWAS court. The ECOWAS court slammed more than that. About $300 million, something like that. But they were still, being grandstanding because it has never happened before that you award that kind of cost against government and they will pay. We continue mounting pressure. So luckily, when the new Attorney General came, the President Attorney General came, we had some understanding. And we said, that this is going to be to the credit of this government. In the first place, when this government was coming, one of the major issues that got flagged was that this is a government that will not respect human rights. Looking at the antecedents of the president when he was a military head of state, and that this is one thing you can do, and at least you put, a criminal, those of us who are criminal lawyers, all you need is to raise the balance of doubt. Raise the doubt in the mind of the judge, and he will not acquit. So we say, if you do this, that's going to give a lot of credit to the government. One, it will strengthen us, because you're training us and you are making us effective. You are now telling people that decisions of the Human Rights Commission are not just rhetorics, that it has a power of enforceability. And our law had been amended actually to say that our decisions could be registered as decisions of the High Court and become enforceable as such. So this was a text case, and luckily he saw with us, and the DSS was compelled to pay that money in April last year.
The whole of it?
Yes, the whole of the money. I administered it myself, and every single person who was supposed to benefit from that was paid their money. Their national body, Matamoras or so, came. We worked together, and they even wrote a letter of thanks to the Commission for helping them to get their compensation.
That's good news, huh? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's very good. We are hearing very good news in this room. On the issue of the disproportion for Pakistan between men and women.
I'm thankful you pinpointed a very significant case. I showed you that at federal level the ratio is not the same. But as I said in my presentation, that education ratio is too low in our province amongst other gender. Specifically, the ratio of female is about to 20-25%, and of the male side it is more than 60%. Number two, female when gets education, they go to health side as well as education side. Only two sectors are occupied by the female more than the male gender. Number three, our act provides that any aggrieved person, what is any aggrieved person may on his own or through his representative file a complaint before the ombudsman. Most of the cases shy is HY. Shy is between the male candidate, the female and the ombudsman becomes a hurdle. In most of the cases, female applicants, complainants come to the ombudsman through their husband, through their father, through their brother. And therefore, complaint name is there as, let us suppose, my wife comes to the ombudsman, I may apply, then my name is written, not name of his wife. This is the issue, the big issue. Beside these cases, the provincial government has specified 10 to 20% quota reserved for female candidates through the employment through the Public Service Commission or through other agencies. However, the literacy rate is too low. Therefore, the number is too low in comparative to the male applicants.
All right. Thank you very much. So the issue of low level of education, and for the fact that the women will go to their husbands or brothers to file complaints, and it means that data has to be interrogated and disaggregated further you'll be able to find there are more women complainants within the system. Thank you for that explanation. Now, this is a very important one from the Ombudsman of Botswana. The classical Ombudsman, how can he interpret his mandate to be able to promote and protect rights? And Ombudsman Waters wants to take on that.
Thank you, colleague Augustine. I told you my legislation is so outdated. It dated from July 1990. The Paris Principles only came into existence in 1993. So there's no way that my legislation can comply with the Paris Principles. What did I do? I interpret my legislation broadly. Who will take me to court? If I tell you that I have no right to visit places of detention announced or unannounced, I'm doing it. Nobody dared to take me to court or tried for the past 15 years. That is number one. I have no duty to promote human rights, express duty. I interpret my legislation broadly, and I'm doing the job. Nobody stopped me. I have no power to call it moto, out of own motion. I have no power in my legislation to do. I did it. Because what would happen with that mother or that son who was killed in the police? To end that story, an NGO took the matter to court, listed me as an expert witness on my own report, and government chickened out. They settled the matter before it's in court. So that is what I'm trying to say, is that you don't need to have money to enforce, to go to court. Let the government take you to court, because you are doing something good, and they will not dare to take you to court. Civil society will back you up. It is my experience in that regard, but I have an express mandate to protect human rights. So I just broaden my own mandate. I hope it clarifies some of the...
Yes. Thank you very much. Which means, for all intents and purposes, his institution is a classical ombudsman institution. But because of the broad interpretation, and initially I talked about this liberal interpretation and personality, and going where others have not gone. You understand? But one thing I have noticed is that as long as it's in the interest of the people, you will get the support of the people, and that will translate to government action. Okay, so let's hear from Joseph Whitworth.
Well, you've taken the words out of my mouth. Just to add to what he said. One, we don't have any mandate to visit prisons and detention centers. But we interpreted that mandate out of the Paris Principles. And we have done that since 1993, when the shot started. Up to now, nobody has challenged this. Indeed, the Constitutional Review has now come to accept the de facto situation and is recommending that they should expressly state it. Two, because we have been proactive in defense of the poor in prisons and detentions, the state has even gone ahead to the Human Rights Council and committed that they are designating the Commission as the national preventive mechanism, even though on paper there is no express power. So that is one. Promotion of human rights. You don't really need a mandate. You are doing advocacy. You are stretching out. You are letting people know their rights, so that from there complaints can come. Now, if you are going to use the norms, human rights norms, in your decisions, there's nothing that prevents you. Because law, your country would have ratified some conventions. You are investigating maladministration. If the maladministration affects a particular right, there is no reason why you cannot look at it from the perspective of that norm that has been breached. Not necessarily the fact that it has to be a specific law passed by the government of Botswana. I don't know whether you can.
Yeah.
So it's about being creative, being.
Yeah, Tony wants to add to that.
Let me support him.
Yeah.
Let me give you a legal basis for what you can do. If you look at the UDHR, 6 or 7 or 8 states, all organs of society, all elements of society are to, through education and training, ensure that these provisions in the UDHR are brought to the use of society, are made to be practiced by all nations, are made to come to the benefit of the people. So what does you need? So whether it is in your act, whether it is in your regulation, whether it's not, as long as you are an organ of society, as long as a member of society, are to use through education and training and advocacy to make sure that the rights in the UDHR are brought to bear on society. So that's enough. That's enough backing for you to do whatever you want to do. You don't even need to be an ombudsman, a human rights institution. By virtue of that, if you're a college of education, if you are a ministry of power, and something concerns the rights of people, you can latch on that and make sure that people get advantage of the right, just like my friend has been doing over the years.
Thank you very much. So it's about creativity, as a race. And there's another point Joseph made that is very important. You know, every country, including Botswana, goes to the UPR session at the Human Rights Council, and they accept certain recommendations that are made by peer states. So you can tap into those recommendations. Botswana has accepted to do this. He said, well, if the government has accepted to do that, I'm an organ of government, I have to enforce it in my rulings, in my determinations, etc. So it's about creativity. And just in a minute, I'll share an experience. I was in Malawi when Chibuana was the ombudsman. And he was voted the man of the year 3 times in sequence. You know why? Because he was making determination on all issues. And the people were benefiting from that. That's why they made him man of the year 3 times. But of course, feathers were offered, the judiciary and so on and so forth. But he engaged in sensitization, programs and so on. And so. He became so effective. In fact, he became the face of human rights in that society. And the current ombudsman alluded to that yesterday as well in her presentations. So some creativity is needed as there is, and of course collaboration is. Is there any burning comments or question before we round up? Yes. Okay. And we have to be gender sensitive, is it not?
Oh, yes.
It's part of human rights. So we have
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rosemary Chikwendo. I'm a mediator. I'm not ombudsman. I'm from the private sector. I'm not a government worker. My question is, or my concern is on the issue of autonomy. The Honorable from Ghana spoke about the principles and the autonomy for validation of approval as an institute. The Human Rights Commission of Nigeria talked about the case they handled. And my question is, if that case was coming from the presidency, for instance, will you have the gumption to handle it the way you did? That is a question and a concern. Then the second concern is about the women in Pakistan.
is their right not being violated if they cannot bring the matter by themselves?
Yeah.
That's
okay. Yes. Okay. So,
So you want to take on the issue it came from government?
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll do so, but none has come. You know, there has not been any. There's the way Nigeria is really. You know, one, there are so many cases which we take on. We don't need to wait for anybody to come if there are violations. And then there are those ones that come through normal complaints. And in terms of interference, there has never been any time that government directed us on how to carry out an investigation, because the law is very clear on that. I think they are afraid. We don't know what will be our reaction. You know, because the law says in carrying out our work, we are not subject to the directions or authority of any person or body. The president cannot even direct me. Unless it's on pure civil service matters. But when there's a complaint before me, if he sends an instruction to me as far I'm directing you as the president, I can afford to ignore it. Because the law even says, before he can remove me, he has to state the reason for which he's going to remove me and to the parliament. And the parliament will debate it and vote. It's not the eyes have it, they must cast the votes and get majority. And how are you going to do that? As long as what I've done is right in the society. So it's tough. It's tough. So they keep off. Really, they respect themselves and keep off.
But that's why they decided to add some money to you.
Yeah. He was trying to remind me now that that at times the government also is not always all negative. For instance, there was complaint about how SARS is the special anti-robbery squad, you know, and they were doing so much havoc in Nigeria. Police investigations. People swing to the government, and the government got embarrassed itself. So they said, okay, Human Rights Commission, can you help us to investigate this? And we went in and investigated it. And we confirmed most of them. We sent our report to the president on 3rd of June. And there, he directed that a white paper panel should be set up. And that white paper panel has completed the assignment now sent back. So we're waiting for the final action on that report. So, and then we're going to start public hearing on sexual and gender-based violence. This has been a worrisome issue in Nigeria for some time, you know. And the government itself also said, look, we think Human Rights Commission can help us out in this. So the preponderance of the cases are not where they are violating and refusing to. When the people run the government, they feel the Human Rights Commission can bail them out and deal with that. So not that you are now handling a complaint and they are telling you don't do so. So that's not the experience we have. Okay. As horrible as things may be, it has never gotten to an issue where we are dealing with a complaint and government is saying back off. It's the Attorney General they can do with that. Go stop a case in court, do that. They don't try it with us.
Yes. Good. All right. Thank you very much. So now
On the violation of on Pakistan. Yes. Now we want to establish a case, a scenario. The woman goes through her husband to make a complaint, and it comes up as her husband making that complaint. In other words, she's not seen. So what they're saying is, would you consider that a violation of the right of the woman to be seen and to be heard?
I may clarify that in Pakistan there is not any constitution of Pakistan nor in any law to stop the women to come to the ombudsman offices or other offices. But our society demands, still our society demands due to low literacy rate, that the women at their own do not or does not want to come and show their names. This is the society, and it's not a violation of fundamental rights, as it would have been fundamental rights violation if there is law promulgated in the country to stop it. No, there is no law, and there is nothing in the Constitution of Pakistan to stop female candidates, female applicants to go to the ombudsman. Our act itself provides that any aggrieved person may or his through her representative. This is not a violation of.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarification. I think it's a very significant one. Now, we've really exhausted our time. We're on borrowed time right now. So let's see. Do we agree just two short, brief questions or comments? Just very short, very brief. And then, how do we allocate that? One woman, one man. Is that fair enough? Yes. And then who is going to be this one man?
Yeah, that's the one man.
Okay. Let's start with one man. Okay.
Well, good day, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Oji from Nigeria.
Organization, what do you do?
A broadcaster. Well, I really want to ask, how is this organization reaching out to the local areas? It's not just sitting here and then, discussing most of these things.
Thank you very much. That's the poorest of the poor. Yeah. How do they reach to the poorest of the poor? Thank you very much. Honorable woman is here.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Chikera Chidiman. I'm a deputy registrar of Federal Polytechnic in Nigeria. I'm here representing my registrar. My own concern right from time is the issue of the youths, and more or less like they are neglected. We have what we call acting and behavior in psychology, and attention-seeking behavior in psychology.
Okay, madam, so you want, how are they reaching out to the youths?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Do we take these two questions now? Who wants to take it among our speakers? Yes, our speakers are very, I told you, very distinguished. So, Joseph, we are speaking to the first question. How are we reaching to the poorest of the poor? Okay.
Quickly, we are reaching out. We have
medium.
Yes, we have created offices in all the 10 regions in Ghana. We have extended it down to the district level, 100 district offices which are there. As government expands, we expand to bring the offices closer to the complainants or to the people who need to bring a complaint, so you don't have to come so far. That's what we're doing. We also reach out through mass media. We use the radios, we speak on a number of the issues, the human rights issues of concern to them. And there is feedback, there's questions time, and we respond. But quickly on the issue of gumption, Madam Gumption. Yes. Just a quick one. We have in Ghana we've had the gumption to investigate a sitting president. A sitting president. The courts, the courts, he can be tried in court, but the position was taken that he can be investigated. And we investigated him close to an election. So you can imagine how the stakes were very high. Secondly, we have had a president sending to us a complaint against his own appointee because of the news media issues. So much against that appointee. So he says, take this, investigate it. I want you to investigate my own appointee. He could have dismissed it, but he wanted the due process. He wanted the people to know that a more neutral, more credible body might
or has come to a conclusion one way or the other.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I think, did we say man, woman, and we've had them? I think it's a convenient time to round up. We could have gone on and on and on and on, but I think we've achieved a lot in this couple of hours. The key issues still remain that the Ombudsman can be a powerful institution, depending on who sits in that office, interprets his mandate, and how creative he gets in trying to get his voice heard. And from the experience of Nigeria and Ghana, we've seen that there's a shift in terms of government respect for these institutions, in terms of supporting and in terms of even bringing complaints for these institutions, which means that sense of legitimacy and validity is there. It's just for these institutions to continue to rise above board. I want to thank each and everyone that came, and particularly our speakers, who gave them a round of applause again. This conversation can continue outside this room in the tea break and lunch. You will see them. If you have any burning question, please feel free to approach them to ask. We've circulated some evaluation tool. If you've completed yours, thank you very much. If you have not, please just take a few minutes to complete it. And if your name is not in the list of participants, please raise your hand. We'll give it to you so that you can fill in. We want to have your details so that some of these presentations, if you have email, we can be able to forward it to you and other information. So if your details are not in the list of participants, please raise up your hand and I'll bring it forward to you. Thank you very much, and have a good lunch. You deserve a good lunch. Thank you very much.
All right.
Sorry, very, very quickly. Can we just thank our chair, please? Because I think you did a really great job. So.
Oh, really? Oh, I don't know.
I've been informed that if IOI members please stay behind because there's going to be a quick election in this room, so everyone will be moving over. The second announcement is for all delegates, please. If you have any changes to your departing travel, your itinerary, please let the Secretariat know, and you can reach them in the Governance and Management Services International booth in the exhibition. So if there are any changes to your present itinerary, I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.